For those who joined us, please bear with us. We're just waiting for participants to join before we begin. We see people coming into the meeting at the moment. Welcome to those just joining us. We're just waiting for a few more participants to arrive before we begin formally. I could do a song and dance routine while we're waiting for other attendees to join, but then you'll think there's something wrong with the connection because it's not going to sound very good. And it's not going to look very good either. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you joining us. We've still got more people arriving, but I'm sure they'll catch up with us as they join the session. This is a very unusual event for me to participate in because normally I give a presentation on trends in the market. I'm not usually involved in a live demo of a solution and talking about a highly specific solution like this, but it has been transformative for me, which is why I was very happy to participate in the event. We're going to be talking broadly about software-defined WAN, SD-WAN, software-defined wide area networking, which is a well-known concept in the world of data centers and large enterprises. But until recently, it hasn't been available to smaller businesses and general businesses, or if it has, it's been highly complex and expensive. The idea of SD-WAN is that it simplifies the management and operation of a WAN, of a wide area network, but also expands its capacity, capability, and reach by utilizing the internet as part of the WAN, and in effect expanding and exposing the WAN across the internet while keeping it highly secure. Similar to the virtualization technology they use in data centers, but very specific to small organizations or small networks that are trying to become bigger networks. What the key to SD-WAN for me is the benefits that it brings. Ronald Bartels will tell you more about the technical aspect of it shortly, but the real key to it for me is that it increases reliability of your network. It reduces the cost of expanding that network. It improves security in the network because you have access to a wide range of software-defined security solutions. And then it also brings in the options of failover, which requires very specific implementation that we'll be talking about today, and bonding becomes possible of different connections. Now, generally speaking, you might have 2 or 3 kinds of connection for linking your network to the internet, for keeping your office running on the network, etc. But when one of them fails, you have to physically switch over to the other. And sometimes you don't realize one of them has failed. What bonding allows is for automatic failover with a few other elements involved as well. And I'll be telling you about my own experience with it a little later. But meanwhile, we're going to have 3 speakers who are going to be talking about this different aspects of SD-WAN and the Comsol and Fusion Broadband solutions in this respect. Before I introduce the first panelist, I just want to mention that they are offering a 500 Rand Take-A-Lot gift voucher to the best question that is asked after the 3 presentations. So once everyone is presented, we'll open the floor to questions. And the best question, as voted by an impartial panel of judges and audited by maybe myself, the best question will win a 500 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher. We're also going to be running polls during this session, so please participate in the polls and contribute to the output of this session. Is the first poll ready to run, Comsol? In the meantime, there we go. Please answer this question. Do you know what SD-WAN can do? And it's very simple, yes, no, or sort of. Just choose one of those. I'm not allowed to answer the question. So I'm hoping you guys can enlighten me. And then once you've answered that question, can we see the results, folks? So a third of people know what SD-WAN can do, and the rest of you are definitely here to learn. More than half sort of know what it can do. So this is really going to be a great educational session. For those who know what it can do, you'll also learn now what more you can do if you have a solution of the kind that we're discussing today. So with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker of the day, which is Justin Colyn, Chief Sales and Marketing Officer at Comsol. He's a seasoned telecoms executive, and he is focused on results. And I know this to be a fact because we sat down to talk about what the Comsol solution could do for me. And the entire focus was on how to make it work, not just selling me the product. So he says customers are his top priority. And I'm now going to hand over to Justin Colyn to explain how they make customers their top priority.
Thanks very much, Arthur, and yeah, welcome to everybody. It's really great to have you take the time to spend an hour or so with us, just you know, with this exciting new solution between Comsol, iTried, and Fusion, and really, you know, we're a connectivity service provider, and we're a licensed wireless fixed access service provider, very niche service provider in South Africa. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about connectivity. And you know, a lot of us want the cheapest connectivity. A lot of us believe that it is a utility and hence you know, should nearly be given away for free. But I think the important part around connectivity is really understanding what you need for your business. And this is not a wireless versus fiber conversation. It is purely a case of we've got horses for courses, and we're going to talk about connectivity, which forms the rails for SD-WAN, and then we'll show you a brief demo towards the end of it. So from a Comsol perspective, we've coined this phrase called multi-connect, and it really is around having multiple last mile connectivity mediums with homogeneous characteristics to really ensure that you are maximizing your return on investment when it comes to driving a resilient and redundant environment to ensure that your business supports, you know, all its stakeholders. And really it's about peace of mind. And, you know, we can get into the technicalities of, you know, on-net fiber, wireless, and all the characteristics that go with that, which we're not going to do today, because I think it's important from an SD-WAN solution perspective that this solution actually can take a plethora of different connectivity mediums, whether that is mobile, 5G, whether it is LTE, whether it's fixed wireless, whether it is fiber, whether it is licensed or unlicensed wireless, doesn't really matter, and really bond this environment together to give your users a phenomenal experience, number one. And then with the advent of cloud, it's also important that you know, your applications are typically remote, even if you're running a private cloud, but it's in a data center off-site, that you have got this this mechanism to allow everybody to at all times access your business applications and service your stakeholders. I think what's also important to talk about, and this is quite difficult when it comes to connectivity, because I think there's this massive focus on fiber, and fiber's it's a good medium, but at the end of the day, when you're buying a service and it is a proper, you know, solution-neared service, that the customer's only interested in, you know, get me connected. It's what we call about an Ethernet handoff, and with a service commitment, because at the end of the day, I don't want to worry about the nuts and the bolts. I just want my service to work, and when something breaks, I want it to carry on working. And I'm the first one to acknowledge that, you know, sometimes we have fiber breaks, other times we have, you know, issues on the wireless network. But I just want to share with you a little bit today around, you know, why licensed wireless. And I think that is a massive differentiator, as we've seen in this partnership between ourselves, iTried, and Fusion Broadband over the last year or so. So, you know, when you ask yourself, why do you need multiple last mile connectivity mediums within homogeneous characteristics? So really, it drives maximizing your SD-WAN's capabilities and overall solution. There's no doubt about it. Once again, as I say, we're the rails or the lanes on our highway, and that's what we provide. My belief, cloud solutions are mature, so I don't even, you know, talk about cloud. You know, very, very seldom do you get major cloud outages, and most business are, you know, either have or are moving into the cloud, and whether that is, you know, private cloud, public cloud, or hybrid cloud. And I'm really dependent on this environment. Quick analogy when it comes to connectivity is, I've bought this Ferrari, I've spent millions of rands on it, and that for me is my cloud enablement. Is this engine and this performance and the interface in terms of how it looks. And I'm driving along and I get a puncture. Now what do? I've got these what I always call these 60-inch tires that can really handle the horsepower and the performance of the vehicle, which once again is the cloud. And now what do? I end up putting a biscuit wheel on to replace a 60-inch tire, and I can't leverage the power of the vehicle or the cloud until I get the tire repaired. And that really is when I talk about the homogeneous characteristics of services. And I'll show you a little a clip later on in terms of what I really mean by that. But you know, instead of me driving 200 miles an hour now, I've got to drive at 40 or 50 miles an hour. So, you know, for a period of time while I'm having the tire repaired, my business is not running optimally, and I'm actually losing my return on investment that I've made, you know, either with my SD-WAN solution or with my cloud, with my applications alike. I think very important for me, and as Arthur said, you know, we focus very much on customer experience. And even though I only form one component, and probably one small component in the customer experience, is we want to really get our customers to understand that if you are, you know, want to maintain your employee and your customer experience, then you need to give them the proper tools and enable them properly to service their stakeholders. And of course, the other benefits speak for themselves. You know, you're either increasing revenues, managing you know, costs or saving costs, and you're really remaining relevant in the marketplace, because you are able to at any point in time service your customers over any channel that they choose to be serviced, and you sit with happy stakeholders. So this is what I just wanted to show you, just in brief, and why we believe that wireless, and in particular licensed fixed wireless access services from Comsol, really play a very, very important role in the connectivity ecosystem in South Africa. So let's just take, you've got a couple of branches around the country. What happens? You lose your last mile, and because you've only got one last mile or one connection going into your business, what can you do? You can do nothing. There, you are down, your systems are down, you can't access your cloud services, you can't service your customers, your employees are unproductive. So from a business perspective, just doesn't make sense. Those of you that know the fiber world, you then, that connects to a ring, lose the ring, and once again, you've got a problem because you haven't got connectivity. So a lot of us go out there and we say, oh, it costs a lot to have a second medium or an appropriate medium with homogeneous last mile characteristics. So you know what? I'm just going to buy an LTE service, and I'm going to use that as backup. But we've got to remember, though, and there is a place for this. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there isn't a place for LTE. But now all of a sudden, why is this not working? I've got my 4G LTE. It kicks in, but because there's a major fiber outage, 200 houses around me and other businesses also log onto the same failover solution. And of course, even though I've got some form of connectivity, the performance is not what it should be. And once again, I talk about the characteristics of the last mile service. So once again, that's my analogy of, as soon as this failover opportunity kicks in, that's my biscuit wheel. Yes, it's going to get me to the next town where I can have it fixed, but it's going to be a frustration for employees and my customer experience. So now what we're saying is there's a wireless component, and it runs on separate infrastructure, different infrastructure, and to a large extent, you've got alternate infrastructure providers and alternate service providers from an internet perspective. So once again, I have an outage, whether that is a ring or my fiber coming into my office or my home or my building. And all of a sudden, because I've got this wireless infrastructure now that could be a couple of 100 meters away from my building or 16 kilometers away from my building. So if I can just indicate, so this whole environment can fail to a large extent, but because my business is in Sandton and I might be working or connecting to an alternate base station that is Randburg, I'm bypassing this localized failure onto the wireless network, which is interconnected, by fiber networks as well. So we endorse fiber, but the difference is because your characteristics of this last mile infrastructure is now the same at a wireless level. Your employee and your customer experience is maintained, and you'll see how well it's maintained a little later on when Ronald and Wynand take you through the demonstration. So for us, that's very, very key. It's not either or; it is definitely an and it's a complementary service to really driving uptime, quality, and peace of mind in the marketplace. Now, a lot of our customers and a lot of the people in the marketplace say, but wireless is unreliable, and equipment gets stolen off of base stations. And what we purposefully did from a Comsol perspective when we designed the network was we said, number one, 95% of our house sites and our base stations sit on top of buildings, not on what we call MNO or mobile network operator infrastructure, where they're experiencing a lot of theft and vandalism, and services just aren't what they should be. So we really look at sturdy installations. The picture on the left at the Wild Bean Cafe, you can see the little pole with the little dish on the top. That's typically an ISM or an unlicensed band a Wi-Fi service, which we replaced with a Comsol service. And you can see it is really a sturdy carrier-grade enterprise installation that we pride ourselves on bringing to the marketplace. We physically use safes to protect our infrastructure, protect our batteries, and we don't see theft. And I always got to touch wood when I say that, because never say never, but we really run a very, very robust and mature infrastructure environment. Where additional security is required, as you can see, we go kind of the extra mile, excuse the pun, to really secure our environment so that, you know, our services are low maintenance, and we are able to ensure that we meet our SLAs and SLDs to the marketplace. I mentioned that most of our infrastructure sits on top of buildings, and that also helps us with massive power outages as well, because a lot of the buildings selected are on UPSs or generators and backup power. So in many occasions, you know, you might have a failure of fiber due to you know, either stage 4 or 5 or 6 load shedding, and you know, the Comsol services typically stay up. So once again, you know, a lot of thought gone into our design and infrastructure in maintaining quality. So really what we talk about is licensed fixed wireless access, and it's really about the you know, the spectrum holding, and because that really gives you the scalability, the flexibility, and you know, and the quality that we profess to have in the marketplace. So we really got a big chunk of 28 gigahertz spectrum or millimeter wave spectrum, 336 megahertz. You know, as a small business, probably you know, the organization with the most millimeter wave spectrum in South Africa, and that absolutely drives the quality. So we design our network to 99.92% at a wireless level, and that really translates into very, very good, what we call IP or internet availability. We also design the network differently in different regions. So, you know, where we know there's lots of thunderstorms, there's lots of lightning, we actually have shortened the distance of our wireless specification to make sure that we can uphold the quality of our network at all times. And then because of the spectrum holding, we are, you know, we're very, very fortunate that we can, on our point to multi-point solutions, offer anything from 1 megabit per second to 100 megabits per second, absolutely, you know, scalable and on demand to our customers. You know, we've been around for 24 years. There's a lot of skill in the organization, a lot of advanced wireless planning tools, and really it boils down to you know, you're talking to the guys that build and maintain and support you know, the best fixed wireless access network in South Africa. We jokingly say we're the you know, the RF guys, and once again, what licensed fixed wireless access gives you is, another analogy is, I've got a 10-lane highway between Gauteng and KZN, and unlicensed, you've got all the cars, all the trucks driving at different speeds, just switching lanes, and there's nearly chaos to a certain extent, and we're all interfering with one another on our journey getting to KZN. There's no toll gates to maintain the roads. And sometimes it works for us, other times it doesn't work for us. And the busier the road, the more chaos there is. With licensed services, you've got your dedicated lanes, you've got your Ferraris in one lane that want to get to their destination very, very quickly. They pay toll fees. That implies, because it's licensed fixed wireless access, there are license fees to be paid to ICASA and the regulatory environment. You've got your trucks in the second lane, they're going to get there at 60 k's an hour, and there is, you know, it's organized. And I think that really is the message that I wanted to get across to the forum today around the Comsol fixed wireless access service as one of the mediums and one of the solutions that enable and prop up the SD-WAN world. So if you really want to run a robust solution, you'll run what we call a Metro Ethernet fiber service with a licensed fixed wireless access service. And it doesn't matter which is primary and secondary anymore with an SD-WAN perspective, because you bond the two links together, which Ronald will take you through a little later on at a technical level. And, you use both links equally. When the one fails, the other one takes over seamlessly, which you'll also see a little later on. So really from a Comsol perspective, that is our focus area. We do one thing, and we do it very, very well as an organization that has done it for many, many years. So if that's all from me at this point in time, and I'm sure we'll answer some questions at a later stage once you have seen the demonstrations. Thank you.
I'd like to welcome Ronald Bartels, who's a director at Fusion Broadband South Africa. He provides solutions to networking and last mile reliability. We have an echo problem. And Wynand Theron, the founder of iTried, and he's an experienced IT manager with a history of working in the IT hospitality and services industry, and we're going to get a fascinating perspective from Ronald and Wynand.
Hi. I'm Ronald Bartels, and I'm going to be demonstrating live with Wynand a failover and a bonded solution that is actually running at Arthur's house. So without further ado, I'll share my screen and show you. So on my screen, I'm actually at the moment running a test, which is just a normal ping test to Arthur's location where he is at the moment. And at the end of this demonstration, we'll go back and see how many packets have been dropped. I've actually been running this since the beginning of the recording, and it's already done 1,800, close to there, about ping tests already. And so at the end of the demonstration, I'll see how many we have. So on my screen, we've actually got the orchestration view of what is at Arthur's location. He has got a SD-WAN location that has been orchestrated and provisioned using the Fusion SD-WAN portal. On the screen right now, you'll see all the configurations of that particular site. But more importantly, I'm going to go to how it's configured from a network perception. So Arthur has got an AfriHost link at his location, and that AfriHost link is a normal Vumatel link that he has, which is a FTTX solution. And combined with that, he has got a Comsol link, and that Comsol link is, instead of being a failover solution, you'll see over here that the bandwidth is aggregated. And what that means, it's a per packet mechanism on which the bandwidth is utilized. A lot of solutions do what's called a per flow solution, where a flow of traffic goes across either the one or the other solution. Fusion, we do per packet, which means we utilize both links and not just the one. So here we have a scenario where we've got both of them. So when you actually are doing a speed test, you get the bandwidth from both the Comsol and the AfriHost link at the same time. So what this means is that when you purchase a microwave link from Comsol, it's not a grudge purchase, because you can utilize that bandwidth with your fiber purchase. So if you've got a 50 megabits per second fiber link and a 50 megabits per second Comsol link, you'll get 100 megabits per second. And they'll be, when both of them are active, both of them will be working. And when one fails, you can still go on. So what we're going to do is now we're going to use Arthur as a guinea pig. and we're going to see whether he remains connected or not. So here on the AfriHost link, I'm actually going to simulate a failure by taking that connection to idle. So what I've done now is I have actually disabled Arthur's link, and he is still there, and he can wave and you can see. So right now at the moment he's working on just the Comsol link, and he hasn't dropped the session. So normally with failover solutions, when you have a failover from one link to the other, the person, if he's on a phone call, the phone call will drop and you have to reestablish. Or if on a video session, you'll actually see the guy being interrupted until it reconnects again, or actually even drop out. So I'm going to re-enable the AfriHost link. And you'll see over here, it's still red, which means it's testing to see whether it is usable or not. And it takes a while, and there it's back active again to say, okay, it is usable, and now the traffic is going across both those links. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disable the Comsol link and simulate a failover of the actual microwave. So we're going to do the exact same thing. And now the actual microwave link has been cut off, and Arthur is still there and waving away. So now we've had a failure of the microwave link and still no drop-in connection from Arthur. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to now go back there and I'm going to re-enable Arthur's microwave link. And you'll see we go through the same process. The SD-WAN determines whether the link is operational or not, and whether it can be joined back into the bonded connection. And there you can see it's gone green. So now Arthur is back using both the microwave and the fiber link. So what we've got is we've taken this demonstration and we've actually created a fuller demonstration with more failure conditions, which we're going to post on social media, which you can actually view and watch. So finally, I'm going to go to my ping test I was running. I'm going to stop it, and we can see that out of the 2,080 packets that were transmitted, we received 2,078, which means that we had a 0.096153% packet loss across the whole time that this ping has been running, which has been since 10 o'clock. So I think that, and we could see that Arthur's video never dropped. And that concludes my.
Yeah, I think in this demonstration also what we can see is that the connection is always stable, it's always there, and especially in a environment like a call center or a school where you or even co-working spaces where you need connectivity all the time, you don't necessarily have to you can utilize services like Comsol, which is actually, in my view, a little bit more the same as a fiber link, and the connectivity will never drop if you're running both of them at the same time. So you have you can have your online meetings, your online discussions with or seminars like we have now, and a link will fail in the background, and we will never have a disconnection of a panelist. We will never have a disconnection of of one of the your attendees. So you'll always have connectivity, running out of a site if you have one or more, two or more connections running off of SD-WAN. And it's also important to note that the SD-WAN actually works a lot better if you have more than one connection from it. And it's as Justin said, you can't have just one connectivity, because if that medium fails, you don't have anything else to fall back on. And your last mile connectivity can range anything from on our SD-WANs, you can do up to 7 ISPs. You can have let's say 2 Comsol links, 4 LTE links, and maybe 1 fiber link as a main. And you can bond all of that together and get one super highway, where your Ferrari can run a lot faster, as Justin said. So I think the important part is to notice that you don't always just so the SD-WAN, apart from just doing the load balancing across all the sites, is to keep your connection up all the time, and you don't want to lose connectivity from the internet. When you have a discussion like this, or a seminar that you want to host.
Thank you for that, Wynand. Just a reminder that when we open for questions, there'll be a 500 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher for the best question, and for filling in the survey as well that we will be running at the end. So now I want to tell you about my own experience with this solution, because it really has been transformative for what we do. To give you a quick overview of Worldwide Works and Gadget, we are firstly a market research company conducting our research using multiple methodologies, and then presenting our research findings typically through webinars like this. We also publish Gadget, the online magazine, South Africa's longest running consumer technology magazine, but also now focusing on business technology. And the Gadget content also runs on the Ayoba app, the MTN-backed chat and news app, where we have a strong video presence. And it's been quite transformative for us, because we now have 270,000 followers on the Ayoba app. So it's become quite a key element of our business, and having access to the content management system there at all times is critical. But then the third element is part of what we do, aside from providing commentary in media on TV, radio, print, and online, we also present to corporate audiences and conferences and the like on trends shaping the IT environment, and also on the research that we conduct. So we provide deep insights into what is happening in the tech world globally. But these are typically events that happen online, with audiences ranging anywhere from 20, as in the case of this webinar, to 2,000 people attending a major corporate event. And that becomes absolutely critical for us in terms of uptime, in terms of not having any interruptions, in terms of having reliable connectivity, because there's nothing worse than 2,000 people watching you trying to re-establish your connection. And that actually has happened to us, where we've had to apologize for having to reconnect via a different network because the one we were using was not reliable enough. So we went to great lengths to ensure that we had backup and we had failovers and the like. But the kind of solutions we were using, along with our AfriHost fiber connection, was the likes of mobile Wi-Fi devices, what they call MiFi, using small Huawei routers. This is typically what one of our MiFi devices looks like, with a reasonable speeds built into them, or on our phones, on my Samsung S21 and S22 Ultras, via MTN, I can get in my environment up to about a 55 meg per second connection. So at worst, I'll use my phone for that connectivity. However, when you have load shedding, the towers tend to decrease in effectiveness. As their batteries run out and their signal disappears, you start relying on towers further away, and the connectivity to those towers becomes weaker and weaker. So we found that we could get away with load shedding during the day, for example. So my laptop, at the moment a MacBook Air, going to move to a Dell shortly, because it gives far more battery life. But the MacBook Air, fairly old one, still gives me 4 hours battery life. So I can survive a load shedding session. The MiFi device will survive a load shedding session, and so will my phone. But my fiber won't, because while AfriHost has battery backup, if the load shedding lasts long enough, their batteries fail as well, and suddenly the fiber disappears. When the towers go down, then all connectivity starts vanishing. So that becomes a major issue in speaking in these corporate events, in presenting to audiences, and also some of the work we do in this area is presenting workshops or doing media training via Zoom, Teams, WebEx, and the like. And all of those are dependent on this kind of reliable connectivity. So we found ourselves in the past having to make excuses. Now, it's fine if you're presenting to an audience in the same area as you are, and they're experiencing the exact same load shedding issue as you are. But the moment it's national, you start getting less patience from viewers from other areas where they don't have the same load shedding schedule. And if it's international, then it's a case of, oh, geez, we're dealing with third world country here. And not referring to our load shedding, but referring to the presenter not having the appropriate equipment and infrastructure to keep presenting. So it becomes a reflection on you as an individual and on your business not having professional grade infrastructure. And that's where Comsol came into the picture. And in my discussions with Justin Colyn and Kitesh Sundar Singh from Fusion Broadband and Ronald, we worked out a solution to the challenges facing us. And as Justin mentioned earlier, we have a 100 meg per second connection from Comsol, and it's a point-to-point connection running from a building in the middle of Johannesburg. We are in the northern suburbs, and that means that typically we're not on the same load shedding schedule, even if they didn't have their backup and their power supply keeping their connection running. However, what happens when we have load shedding on our side and we don't have power? Well, there we installed an inverter from Mesa called the G-Wiz, and it's a 2400 VA inverter kit, which runs for, I cannot tell you how long, because we haven't yet to have it run out of power. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a situation where we had load shedding for 2 hours, and when power came back on, the local transformer tripped in the substation nearest to us. And you'll all know that experience because it happens everywhere. And the further result of that was that we were out of power for the next 14 hours. We had a 16-hour power outage, and the G-Wiz inverter kept going throughout that time. It kept our AfriHost fiber link going throughout that time, and it kept our Comsol link going throughout that time. Now, in between all of this, there have been quite a few occasions where AfriHost has actually gone down, not because of load shedding, but because they've had network issues. And when you combine all of these issues, you can see that it becomes enormously challenging to guarantee 100% connectivity while you live on air to 2,000 people, for argument's sake. The same applies, incidentally, when we're doing TV interviews. We do TV interviews from here via Zoom, and also some stations still use, do you remember that ancient technology called Skype? Some of them still use Skype. So Skype, Zoom, and occasionally Teams for a broadcast event. And there especially, you don't want to be live on air when you suddenly go down. So one of my most embarrassing moments was presenting on Teams, and because this was before Comsol and Fusion Broadband came along, because we didn't have reliable backup connectivity, when our one connection went down and we flipped over to our MiFi device, the connection was so poor that we couldn't access the functionality of Teams. And it took quite some time before we were able to bring our presentation up on screen. And in fact, they had to defer our presentation to later in the event, and someone else had to bring their presentation earlier. It was deeply embarrassing, and professionally, it was quite damaging as well. Now, since we've brought in the Comsol and Fusion Broadband solution, that has never happened again. And you saw Ronald's demonstration. The minimal packet loss means that when we've been presenting, and this is the real key to it, live to a large audience, and load shedding has suddenly kicked in the middle of that presentation, it has been completely unnoticeable to the audience. There's been absolutely no drop in the signal. There may have been a drop in connectivity speed, but let me share the numbers with you that we are able to achieve with this. So previously, our AfriHost connection was 200 megs per second, and Comsol was 100 megs per second. With the bonded solution from Fusion Broadband, we were achieving around 250 to 260 megs per second on a Wi-Fi connection in our offices. Recently, AfriHost doubled the provision of broadband on the same connections, and we went up to 400 megs per second on AfriHost with the 100 megs per second from Comsol. And suddenly we were seeing speeds of 450 megs per second. It felt like we were living in the future, which is quite incredible. So most of the time you don't need that kind of speed, but what it means is that there's absolutely no bottleneck with regard to connectivity. So the family, for example, could be watching Netflix from 3 different locations, or Showmax, or Disney Plus now as well. They could all be watching a separate stream on different devices, while I could be presenting in the office to a live audience, and there is no noticeable impact. Normally, even on a 100 meg per second fiber line, when you have 3 or 4 people watching different streams, you start seeing an impact. You're not supposed to, because it's supposed to be enough for everybody, but it's not. We know that the addition of multiple streams to a connection will compromise performance. Once you get up to those high speeds of 300 to 500 megs per second, you don't see any compromise whatsoever. So you have the speed, you have the reliability, you have the failover as well. And then built into the system, and this Ronald looks after, is the security side of things. Our connectivity is protected. We also use protection on our side to ensure that no one can hack into our connections and our broadband. But the most important thing of all is that it allows us to maintain a highly professional operation, present a professional image to the world. And when we're presenting to international audiences, no one is thinking he's from South Africa, therefore they have a third world connectivity or third world infrastructure. Rather, oh, it's South Africa again. we're going to have a good experience because they have great infrastructure. That's the impression that we are giving to the world through this kind of solution. So it's a win-win-win situation. And cost-wise, it's for any small to medium business that has a reasonable turnover, it's highly accessible. So the SD-WAN Fusion Broadband solution is around, and you can update me on this, but around 5,000 Rand a month. The hardware costs about 8,000 Rand. So it's highly accessible if reliability, connectivity, and failover is important to your business. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Arthur. I think that was a brilliant example of what the product can do. And I think, you know, we've spoken about the aggregation and the load balancing of the internet connections, and we've seen the live demonstrations, but just some added to what this product has. And I think Arthur basically touched on it a little bit, is quality of service. And you know, it's a quality of service that actually allows your kids to be able to stream Netflix or Showmax or one of these other solutions anywhere in the house while you do your live interviews and your live streams in your office. Then, you know, other services like DNS masking. You know, DNS masking is important if you have a large site and you don't want everyone looking up DNS queries all the time. So you basically cache your DNS services on your live on your network, and the lookup doesn't go out to your normal quad 9 or 8.8.8.8 or 1.1. So it's always hosted locally, so you can your DNS lookup is fast and responsive, and it's always there. Then the other thing that it has is threat protection. So threat protection, as Arthur said, you know, it looks after the, you know, IBM looks after this, where they would be able to cache the IP addresses of known hackers, and that is then placed into a database, and the SD-WAN will automatically reject anything to or from that address. And the SD-WAN is also then capable of just locking down those connections. So typically, when you would want to go to a website and the website doesn't respond, you will actually see you know, an error message on your screen saying that the network is or the website is unavailable. And then one of the other features that we have on the product is network optimization. And you know, running a large business, a large corporation, it's always difficult to know what exactly is happening on your network. And with the SD-WAN, what we can do is give you an overview of what's happening on your network. We can see exactly what each device can do. We can have a connection, a dashboard for you, where you can actually view each and every service. So how many people went to Google, how many people went to YouTube, and that will also show you this this little, you know, dashboard of, you know, all your bad passwords on the network. It will show you any blocked connectivities. It will show you anyone using a Tor browser to browse anything that's you know, not that shouldn't be on your network. And then the last thing that I quickly want to touch on is our AI and monitoring, and how the artificial intelligence maintains this whole internet connectivity. You know, even if your internet seems a little up and down, you know, your fiber might be going through a small little dip, and the SD-WAN adjusts itself in such a way where, you know, if say for instance there's a bird that flew in between the two Comsol, the tower and your let's say an ostrich flew between the tower and your house, and so what will happen is that you'll have that little dip of internet, but the SD-WAN is so intelligent that it will automatically adjust your internet to such a way where you wouldn't even feel it. So you will see that there's some sort of, you won't even feel that there's any connectivity issues at all. And what the nice part of this is that we've got 3 major locations in South Africa with decent internet, and it's the Taroko data centers. And we've been fortunate enough to partner with quite big ISPs around the country, including Comsol, where we can host aggregation. And if the one aggregator fails, we can always switch over to another aggregator. And the main thing about just stepping back a little bit is about a SD-WAN is you need that endpoint which controls your lines, your last miles, and then you need your internet breakouts of some sorts. And what we've done as Fusion and iTried, we've partnered with a few ISPs around the country. We've got CyberSmart in Cape Town, we've got Comsol in Joburg, and PowerCloud, and we've actually built our aggregation devices into their cabinets and making sure that the internet is always there and always available. If it's not available by the one, it will be available by the other, and we can just switch over the connectivity to a different breakouts, internet breakouts. But the whole, as a whole, the SD-WAN, your on-prem device or your edge node will sit in your cabinet. It will have your 3 or 4 ISPs hooked into it. If you have the bigger one, you can have up to 7 ISPs. And in this situation where you have 7 ISPs, you can either use them as a failover, you can use them as a bonded connection. You can use it as VoIP over the one. You have data over the other one, but there's so many opportunities with this. It's we can spin up a MPLS view if you really want to. You can have a VPN between sites. You can have and the main thing is that apart from having just the edge on your or the edge node in your cabinet, sitting in your cabinet at the end of the day, you have the likes of iTried backing the solution, so you can call us anytime. If you have a problem with the solution, we can always you can utilize our channels, which is WhatsApp or email. Log a ticket. We can then help you out. And Ronald is always also available if there's anything like major happening. He's always there to jump on the call and just to see what's happening. And I think Ronald's if there's anything that I've missed, I mean, you can always add it.
You covered it extensively well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think one last thing is if you go to itried.co.za/SD-WAN, you'll see that there's a little bit of information about the SD-WAN, all the capabilities of what we've done. You'll also see that the little bit of a diagram of how the internet would flow if you go out. And then if you scroll down, you'll see the pricing of the SD-WAN. So entry-level tier, if you have one connection only, that's $8.99. Your mid-level tier, which is if you have up to 3 ISPs and up to 400 megabits per second you want to fail over, that goes through 1399 exabytes per month. And then your enterprise tier, if you have more than 3 or bandwidth exceeding 400 megabits per second, that's 1,999 per month. And then right at the bottom, you'll see there's a chance for all of our attendees to win the SD-WAN experience. So we have one of 3 SD-WAN experiences to give away. It's also a long-running competition that we've been having. We randomly choose every now and then. We randomly choose a site to do, and we give you a 3-month free SD-WAN experience. And what's better than to you have to try the service before you can make a decision, right? So I think the main thing is, the SD-WAN, until you try it, you won't buy it. And I think that, experiencing what the SD-WAN can do for your business is actually what we promote as iTried, and what Fusion Broadband has so kindly been partnering. So they've been providing the SD-WANs for us. And one last thing that I want to mention is that we as iTried use the SD-WAN in quite a number of different scenarios. We've got Comsol links in all of these scenarios, where we have our co-working spaces. We have spaces where it's schools, and I think where schools are benefiting is that you can actually, on your DNS masking, you can actually block things like your Facebooks and your YouTubes. That's not needed in a school environment. We've got colleges or tertiary education departments that uses this service or this Fusion SD-WAN. And the main thing is that in all of these situations, they either have a bonded connection or a secondary link, or they use Comsol as their main or primary service. And in all of them, we've been running a Comsol link, 100 megabits per second Comsol link for a 200 user location, where it's insane. If you think about, putting so much traffic on a 100 meg pipe, and the SD-WAN is able to, with its quality of service, make sure that the site is actively running and is actually running optimally. But yeah, so just that website again, itried.co.za/SD-WAN, and then you can sign up there.
Thanks a lot, Wynand. We're now going to open the floor for questions. And as I mentioned, the best question is going to win a 500 Rand Take-A-Lot voucher. And you can also get a 3-month trial of Fusion Broadband, I understand, if you fill in the survey. One winner will be selected for that. So, questions from the audience, you're welcome to raise your hand or post a question in the chat channel. Comsol host has posted a link to the survey, so please click on that and fill in the survey. And one of the people who fills in the survey will win that 3-month Comsol experience to try it out. Any questions from the audience? So I'll ask a question. We do have some questions. Okay. Junior Basoko Chikala wants to know what makes Fusion Broadband solution an SD-WAN solution rather than a redundant failover system with dual multiple internet links or capacity aggregation? And is Fusion Broadband solution MEF compliant? I think, Ronald, you may want to answer that question.
Yes, so the Fusion SD-WAN solution complies to what Gartner has defined in the SD-WAN solution, and we're actually one of the they determined up as that we're not in the dashboard yet, but up and coming players in the SD-WAN market. Fusion is not MEF compliant. We do not have a we haven't done MEF compliance for our solution. The primary purpose of the SD-WAN solution is that we provide a private WAN for companies to use, and with that we also provide the ability to actually have redundant links. So we're a SD-WAN solution that does a per packet based balancing between links, but other solutions utilize a system called flow-based, where one connection will always go to one link and another one to another one. Our architecture is also something called hub and spoke, and not mesh. The hub and spoke architecture is what allows us to actually fail over and maintain connection on a site without dropping anything. If you had a mesh solution, you'd notice when you go from one link to the other. There is a lot of the mesh solutions, when they want to go towards implementing a fast failover, have to also implement a hub and spoke solution, but we're exclusively a hub and spoke solution.
Thanks, Ronald. The next question is from Lindy Marks, who missed the part where we spoke about the devices that are used on the tiered solutions. Could you quickly give a rundown of that again, Ronald?
Yes, so we've basically got three types of hardware. Our hardware is what's known as an Intel white box. So we use Intel processors and Intel network controllers. So we do not actually have proprietary hardware. And one of the benefits of that is we haven't been badly impacted by the chip shortage, because the devices that we use are readily available. So we've got a device that goes up to 200 megabits per second, and then which is about at a certain price. Then we've got a device that goes up to 400, and then we've got a device that goes up to 1 gigabits per second. So typically, the significant majority of businesses are less than 200 megabits per second.
Great, thank you. And then a question from Christian Bornman, which I'll answer initially, and then I'm going to ask Wynand also to answer, is does your bonded solution make provision for VPN connections during failover, or do the VPN connections still need to be renegotiated after connection failover? So we have used a number of VPN solutions, and most recently I did a review of Windscribe, for example, as my gadget of the week. And in using these solutions, we've actually paid attention to what happens when there's a failover, particularly during load shedding. And there's been no dip in the connection whatsoever. Occasionally, we have seen that the VPN itself has asked us to reconnect, but generally speaking, when the failover has happened or the switchover has happened, the VPN connection has been maintained. Wynand, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, so because you're seen to have one IP address from your local network, and because it's per packet based connection, the main part is that your VPN should not disconnect or will not disconnect because it is running a bonded aggregation through two or more links. And the main part is that your VPN is basically should actually just be stable. It should not have a drop in connection at all.
Great, thanks, Wynand. Are there any further questions? I have a quick question. You mentioned Tor earlier, Wynand. If people are using Tor, it can be monitored. I understood that Tor can't be monitored. How would that work?
So it's not about that we can see what's happening inside the Tor browser. It's that we can see that you use the Tor browser. So we will see that connection is actually coming from that specific device or a specific device on the network. So we will be able to, it's pure deep packet inspection on your network, or DPI as they would call it. So it's purely an application based. We know this application uses this specific protocol, and the software called Illuminate will be able to tell us exactly what it is that's happening on your network at that specific time.
So guys, you're still safe on the dark web. Any further questions? And now we're going to vote on the best of those questions to win the Take-A-Lot voucher. I don't know what the rest of you guys think, but I thought the most challenging question was the one from Junior Basoko Chikala. And I think Wynand also votes for that. Any objections from Ronald and Justin?
Happy with that.
So our auditors, PwC and KPMG jointly have validated our vote. And we do have another question, but Nicholas, you came in late. We are going to answer your question. But meanwhile, the winner of the voucher is Junior. And will you please share your email address with Comsol host? You can share it privately if you like, and they will arrange for you to get your voucher. Meanwhile, a great question from Nicholas Johannes Jooste, which is, what is the future of SD-WAN? And perhaps all three our panelists can address that question. I'll start with Justin.
Yeah, thank you. I think you know, it's so new in South Africa, and I think the whole virtualization of infrastructure and just making it easy in terms of self-serve, I think that's going to be a big future play of SD-WAN. It is, I don't want to oversimplify it, but I think it is a simple environment if you've got the right technology, such as you know, Fusion's technology. And I think it will nearly become an element of a vanilla virtual, nearly consumption-based as a service play in the future. That's how I see it. I don't see a technology that is ahead of the curve yet that is going to supersede it, like SD-WAN is challenging MPLS at this point in time. But I just think it's going to become a simpler, easier plug-and-play environment as and when that technology matures.
Yeah, just on top of what Justin just said, and funny, as you read out the question, I got an SMS from Capitec that says we are experiencing connectivity issues on our app. You know, and typically in hosted environments like a app that we host in a environment that's a hosted data center, you know, if connections gets lost, you don't always have, you know, anyone can pull out a fiber somewhere in the data center. Anyone can pull out a network cable in, you know, in somewhere in the data center, and you know what we would see in an environment for the SD-WAN, or what we would do in an environment for the SD-WAN is, you know, we would bond a few extra devices on it. You'll have your one IP address that you can configure on your firewall, and that one IP address is what your app sees, is what, and whatever happens on any of your mediums of connectivity that you have, if that thing is hosted in the cloud or wherever, and you have your SD-WAN in front of it, your connection and your connectivity will always be live. You know, there's not going to be that drop in connection, like, you know, Capitec just sent me an SMS, or, you know, we won't need to. There would be no need to shut down your app because there's connectivity issues, basically.
And that's a great example, Ronald.
Yes, so the future of SD-WAN, and the SD-WAN as we see it, is a last mile technology. It isn't going to replace or do anything different for data centers. It isn't going to do anything different for ISPs, how ISP runs their network. So where it's going to be utilized a lot is in where you've got a branch, and that branch has got multiple ISPs that it has to use. And there it will eventually over time transcend where people have been utilizing MPLS for their branch networks. Those branch networks will migrate from MPLS to SD-WAN because effectively it becomes a more cost-effective solution. But that is a thing that where it will go to in the future. So it is last mile, and it is not. It doesn't necessarily become a blanket solution for all types of connectivity issues or problems. The other thing that it is also important for is that more and more maturity and applications will develop, there will be business requirements that will come up that we don't know yet about. And because it's software and a business requirement comes up, the software guys will be able to fulfill those business requirements faster than if they were totally reliant on a hardware device.
That's an enlightening answer. We'll stay with you, Ronald, for the next question from Kobus Okamp. Is there a possibility to run the SD-WAN on a virtual server, or should it be a physical device? Leading directly on from what you were just talking about.
Yes, the SD-WAN can run in a virtualized environment on a virtual server. It is based upon Intel technology, and it requires the virtualization to be Intel, and it will then operate in any virtualized environment. There are some people that from cloud environments, for example, the major cloud provider, where you put an SD-WAN instance in the cloud to actually get connectivity back into your own network. That is a deployment, and it's called a cloud connector. All the SD-WAN providers out there do something similar like that to connect into the cloud and make the cloud available as part of your own network. For example, if you have a data center and you migrate it into the cloud, you still want your network to be private and not run across the internet to that data center. So you actually use SD-WAN cloud connectors from your chosen cloud provider into your own private network to connect them to and remain private, so that it still runs like if you were running your data center privately without public access.
Excellent. Thank you, Ronald. With no more questions, I'm going to ask each of the panelists just to wrap up the significance for them of the emerging solutions for SD-WAN, starting with Justin.
Thanks, Arthur. Yeah, so I think really, as I said earlier on, is the connectivity aspect in South Africa is really deemed to be, a utility. And I think my emphasis today was it's no longer utility, given the critical nature of people moving into the cloud. Arthur, your examples were to the point. And I really think, if companies remain relevant, ensure they're enhancing their employee and their customers' experiences, and staying competitive, then you need an overall package that is going to meet the requirements of your business. And once again, one size doesn't fit all. There's a place for all aspects of connectivity in South Africa. Number one, SD-WAN really brings that to the fore, where they can take what I always call dodgy connectivity and give you a good user experience. And I think the package is what's important. Yeah, the ecosystem is what is important, and I think that is what we were trying to showcase this morning between Comsol, iTried, and Fusion Broadband's technologies, to say there are really cost-effective solutions in South Africa that can meet small organizations or large organizations, business requirements and price points, number one. And for us, very importantly, from a network perspective, is there is a fiber equivalent service in South Africa that I always say will take on any technology toe to toe, which is very, very important. And that will really assist businesses with the next couple of years of load shedding. So with that, thank you very much for everybody's participation, and Arthur, for you hosting us.
Thanks, Justin. Over to you, Wynand.
Thanks, Arthur. Yeah, I think just to corroborate what Justin was saying, in terms of connectivity and Comsol's connectivity, if you just have a remote site somewhere that you can't get internet connection, Comsol is always there, and they just basically just a click away. And so in our experience as a provider of services, our solution would be, get one fiber internet, get one Comsol microwave, licensed microwave service, and get a SD-WAN, and you're all set for your networking. And if you have a data center, plunk a GWS UPS down, and you can then get your network stable at least throughout the day.
Thanks, Wynand. Finally, Ronald.
So I see that. I mean, I'm old and grey, and I remember the days where we didn't have the cloud and where we would use everything locally. So now that's all stopped and disappeared, and things have changed differently. I was talking to actually a virtual hosting provider who said he has had a large problem with load shedding and connectivity, because when there is connectivity loss in his office, all of his staff stop working and then they go out onto the balcony to smoke. And then he goes, but guys, there are all of these customers who are using this hosting service. They're relying on you to get things going, get things fixed. And you hear you sitting smoking on the balcony because we don't have connectivity. It's something we have to solve. So cloud has solved the problem in that we don't need our own infrastructure, but we now also need to solve the problem that we need to remain connected all of the time. Otherwise, we're losing business or we're losing productivity. And I think that's where we are going now is, it's not a technology discussion. It's about how productive can we be going forward into the future.
That sums it up perfectly. If you out of connectivity and you're out of power, you're out of business as well. To wrap up and to sum up, I thought I'd just mention a couple of tidbits or nuggets of insight that I gained in the last couple of months. Firstly, just yesterday, I attended a small media briefing by the new CEO of MTN South Africa, Charles Molapisi, and he was saying that the network has to evolve from being a telco to being a techco. And the route to becoming a techco is software defined in terms of their overall network. And then going back just under 2 months, I was at the Cisco Live conference in the United States, where they acknowledged the worldwide shortage of Cisco routing equipment due to the chips shortage and other materials shortages around the world. And they also acknowledged that the way to keep evolving is around software-defined solutions. So whether you a small customer of a routing provider or you're a large telco, the future is very much driven by software-defined strategies. And these solutions fit in to that future and help make that future possible. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to the panelists, and thank you for all the attendees. The questions were great. Don't forget to fill in the survey. The link is there in the chat panel for a chance to win a 3-month free trial of the Comsol Fusion Broadband and iTried solution. Thanks so much for being with us. We look forward to chatting with you all again in the near future.
Thanks, everyone.